What's up, good people? It's your boy Jay Free coming back at you again, continuing, to talk about these topics that are at hand that are going on around us continually. Um, Yesterday we was into the Willie Lynch letter, and we will begin to breaking down, you know, the effects of it, how it affects us today. We were breaking down the purpose of it was because they felt the need for some help and assistance in trying to control their niggas and their slaves. And so they called upon Willie Lynch because they had put in deep scientific thought, they had put in study, and they were trying to put psychology in it. We also discussed and uncovered through the letter that I can't make up, how his plan was to use psychology as opposed to brute force, because he understood that using the psychology would last a lot longer than just trying to use brute force, because brute force would result in the people always having a desire to overcome you. But if people are held up in bondage and enslaved through the mind, that means that they unaware of their bondage, and they actually come to thank you and praise you for the condition that they in, because they think that you're doing them a favor, which is where we at today. And so we're gonna dive back into the Willie Lynch, but I just wanted to hit on a couple points that we was talking about yesterday as we broke down the differences that he used. Where we live, how we look, the size of the plantation, the type of, all of these things translate today. We wanted to talk about because they translate to us today in regards to, like I say, when he's talk about the size of the plantation, then today you would talk about what job you work. You see what I'm saying? And all of these things, he said that he would take these differences and use fear, distrust, and envy for the purpose of control. So when you look at the state we at today as a people, our biggest downfall is we can't have unity. People won't come together for nothing. Our homes are broken, our families are dysfunctional, our community is dysfunctional, because as the family goes, so the community goes. And then we blindfolded by the religion, which is the number one tool that they use to brainwash us by. And so through this whole process, we completely unaware, and they using these tools right now today, just like they implemented all the way back then. And so we got niggas that's separated saying, you got a group, you got some that live in the suburbs that make more money than others, and they look at the ones in the streets thugging and say, man, they ain't nothing but thugs, they ain't no good, they don't represent me. I done heard black people out their mouth say the words, I hate niggas, and they say it not prejudice. They say it because they think they a different class of black people. They think because they got more money and they live in a better neighborhood and they got access to different things, that they better than the brethren that's on welfare, that's living in the streets hustling. They think they better than another brother, never realizing that this whole system was put together and devised to keep everybody in position and divided. So there are certain people that are in the streets, but it's not their fault that they where they at. I know you like, what you talking about, man? You have to understand, that's why we digging into it. It's a psychological warfare. And so, yeah, it's cats in the street thugging, but as a person that comes from that atmosphere and environment, I had to look back and analyze and begin to wonder why we do what we do and why we act the way we act and think how we think. You see what I'm saying? And so as you begin to dig in, you begin to understand we all operate off of our unconscious mind, meaning we are products of an environment and we have no idea of where we come from. So this is why you always have people do stuff and they be like, I don't know why I did that, or I don't know why I like this or why I like that, or people have different tastes and different desires. All of these are products of our environment that are embedded in our unconscious through our young stages of our early development. And so through this process of psychology, when they first begin to implement these tools, vaccinations, what they teach our kids in school, and then again this process of how they go through the Willie Lynch process of making a slave and then still it to us today. But that's how I wanted to hit on. All of this ties into where we at today and why we as a people can't get ahead. So yesterday we was talking about how they compared us to the horse, and they talked about breaking the nigga the same way that you have to break the horse. We even left off talking about what he said. In other words, he said the horse and the nigga must be broken. That is, you must break them from one form of mental life to another. Like I just said, they understood it was a psychological process. You break them from one form of mental life to another. Keep the body, take the mind. In other words, break the will to resist. And he said, now the breaking process was the same for the horse and the nigger, only slightly varying in degrees. But this was the key. This was the last where I left off last night. And he said the key was, he said, as we said before, there's an art to long-range economic planning. You must keep your eye and thoughts on the female and the offspring of the horse and the nigger. So we back on this part. He talked about keep your eye and thoughts on the female, and he says long term, long range. Like I say, this is affecting us today. Again, the thing that's important about the Willie Lynch, and I done said this and been saying it for years to people, is even before I got a hold of this and began to break it down, it's already pretty obvious that the intentions were meant for now, because when we were slaves, we were slaves. You know what I'm saying? We was shackled and cuffed. Even if you broke free and ran, because as a nigga you was a slave, anywhere in the country where you went, people still would say, who is you and where you at? It's just like the movie 12 Years a Slave. Even if you was considered free, you still could be snatched into slavery, because that's what we were, slaves. So the plan that they talking about, the psychological process, they invented, just like they said, for long-term economic success. When we think that we were emancipated, we were never emancipated or set free. It was just a new era for them to come in. They went from one form of money making to another. They had already gotten rich and grown off our backs through slavery, so now it was time to use us for industry. And so they wanted us for industry, and also because they hadn't yet conquered the world, they still had to, appease certain other officials around the world as they were still yet implementing their plan. So these tools were very important for them to implement their plan to be able to be in the position they are today. Because today in 2015, remember 1712, America was not the strongest nation in the world. We was really nothing. But now today in 2015, America is everything. However, America is a corporation. It's not even really a country. But people don't know that. It's so much research to go into with information. But America's not even a country. We are a corporation. You understand? Look up DC and understand that it's its own sovereign entity. Look up these things and begin to learn and understand what I'm talking about, what's going on around us. So when he talked about this long-term economic success, now mind you what he says not going forward. He says the key to sound economic principles, I'm going forward now. He says the key to sound economic principles is that we must pay little attention to the generation of original breaking, but concentrate on future generation, which is what I just said. It was long term. He said, therefore, if you break the female mother, she will break the offspring in its early years of development. And when the offspring is old enough to work, she will deliver it up to you. For her normal female protective tendencies will have been lost in the original breaking process. So he's right here talking about, don't worry about, right now, this generation. He say, but we're going to put this plan into play, and the next generations as they continue to come. He say, once the female is truly broken, she's going to bring her offspring up, and she going to bring them up under a mentality of servitude and a mentality of submission. She's saying, then that's when we really got them, because now we all the way in their mind and they'll be completely unaware. He say, right now, the first generation we starting with, they still in touch with their roots. They still know their history and know that this is not their natural state. You understand what I'm saying? But now where we are in 2015, we don't know our natural state. We don't know what it really is to be free. See, we think what we live now is freedom. You're not free. Tell me, what do you have that is yours? Nothing. Not even your life. They can come knock on your door, serve you a warrant, put charges on you and make them up if they want to, and take you to prison and keep you there forever. They can come knock on your door and take your kids if they want to. Don't pay your taxes. Watch they come take your vehicle. Don't pay your taxes. You can have a $500,000 house and owe $5,000 in property tax. They come take your house. In fact, the house that you got, try to build a fence. Try to install a pool. Try to do anything without getting the proper zoning certificates and so on and so forth, and see how much you really own since you got something. You see what I'm saying? Nothing we have is ours. They just make us think it's ours. This is all the process of the brainwashing, the blinding of slavery. But this is why they said we're going to focus on the future generations, because they'll be completely unaware of what's going on, because it will have been lost in the original breaking process. So now he says, he used the example of the horse, but for the sake of time, I'm not going go through the example of the horse, but remember, they're comparing the niggas to the horse. So I'm not going to go through the process that he uses to explain to them about the horse, but I'm going to say where he comes into us. He says, I'll break the end. He says, once you completely break the female horse until she becomes very, very gentle, whereas you or anybody can ride her in her comfort. So this is what the end result of them breaking the horse was, that the female would be broken so that she would be gentle and anybody could ride her in her comfort, because that's their purpose for the horse. But now he says, train the female horse where she will eat out of your hand, and she will in turn train the infant horse to eat out of your hand. Now we get to the meat. When it comes to breaking the uncivilized nigga, use the same process, but vary the degree and step up the pressure, so as to do, pay attention to the wording, so as to do a complete reversal of the mind. I can't make the words up, people. They said they understood what they were doing then, the effects it would have today. And we exist today with all of these differences, distrusting each other, envious of each other, afraid to trust one another, afraid to step forward, not knowing who we are, lost of self-identity, all because of a plan that they implemented years ago that we were completely unaware of. You see what I'm saying? He says you will do a complete reversal of the mind. And now watch this process, people. He said, take the meanest and most restless nigga, the biggest, baddest nigga, and strip him of his clothes in front of all the remaining niggas, male niggas, the female and the nigga infants. Tar him and feather him. Tie each leg to a different horse, faced in opposite directions. Set him on fire, and then beat him until both horses to pull him apart in front of the remaining niggas. Did you hear what they said? The breaking process, the torture and torment so you take the biggest, baddest nigga and you just destroy him, kill him, but you kill it, like, just show that he's nothing, that he's completely nothing in front of everybody. And then the next step, after you done this to the biggest, baddest nigga, the next step is to take a bullwhip then and beat the remaining nigga males, all the other niggas that's left, beat them to the point of death in front of the female and the infant. Don't kill him, but put the fear of God in him so he can be useful for future breeding. Did you hear what they said, man? I won't. Do you hear the plans and the thought, that the process of what they were implementing and how they really thought of us and think of us behind the scenes, and we completely unaware? They said, kill us, tie this nigga up, tar him and feather him, have him ripped apart by a horse after you done all this to set him on fire, rip him apart by a horse in front of everybody, then beat the other niggas to the point of death. Don't kill him, but to the fear of God. Are you in front of everybody else? And then take the female and run a series of tests on her to see now if she will submit to your desires willingly. Test her in every single way, because she is the most important factor for good economics. If she shows any sign of resistance in submitting completely to your will, do not hesitate to use the bullwhip on her to extract that last bit of bitch, it says right there, out of her. In other words, after you done all this to the niggas in front of them, the female should be broken. But because remember now, because the first group, the first generation was still in touch with who they were, say you still got to test her though and make sure she understand what's going on. And for those that resist, beat them and beat the crap out of them too, until they figure out that you're not playing with them because they're a woman. They ain't getting this slight either, that they understand it can happen to them. He's saying once you do that, then you good, because that's the best place for economics. But don't kill her. And then he says, now when she is in complete submission, she will train her offsprings in the early years to submit to labor when they become of age. Understanding is the best thing. So remember now, this is the first generation. So after she done been submitted and these niggas done been beat to the point of death to where we can't do nothing no more. You know what I'm saying? Now she gonna raise the babies in the same process. So now they have no conscious connection. And if you watch the movie Roots and pay attention to the movie Roots, you will notice it in the movie Roots. In the movie Roots, Kunta cut his foot off trying to get free. But as the movie progressed, I can't remember in detail, but I believe it was Chicken George talking to Kizzy or somewhere later on. And I believe he was telling Kizzy, don't talk about freedom, girl. Don't you dare think about running. And this was the process of breaking that had taken place through the generations, to where in the beginning, because we were in touch, y'all not gonna break me, but through the breaking process we had became complacent and conformed and submissive, and we actually, the Bible and religion and everything that they implemented through this process, because we're gonna get into that later, all that ties into this. Now these are plans, we going over the details of the plan, but you got to see it's implemented in every area, in every aspect. You see what I'm saying? This was part of the lie. What makes you think if they felt this way and they plan was for long-term economic success, and to completely reverse your mind, as we just read, to do a complete reversal of the mind, and as we read earlier, to take you away from your history and teach you a new language so you will be broken? What makes you think at any point in there that Christianity was meant for your good, that Jesus was truth, the way, and life? What makes us think that at any point in time that they actually were truthful with us when they gave us this religion? And history itself can confer that they weren't truthful. But again, like you say, breaking the woman, he says, we go deep in the area of the subject. He says, concerning what we have produced here in this breaking process of the female nigger, he says, we have reversed the relationship. In her natural uncivilized state, she would have a strong dependency on the uncivilized nigger male, and she would have a limited protective tendency toward her independent male offspring, and would raise male offspring to be dependent like her. Ooh, my time. So I know I ain't gonna. So we gonna hit on this. And understanding is the best thing. He said. Now, he say, let's look at what we produced out of the breaking process of this female nigger. He said we have completely reversed the relationship. In her natural uncivilized state, she would have had a strong dependency on the uncivilized nigger male. In other words, in her natural state, she was dependent on the man. And she would have limited protective tendency toward her independent male offsprings. In other words, she wouldn't have been where she would, the process would have been as it should have been. And it says, and they would raise the male offspring to be dependent like her. But it says nature had provided for this type of balance. In other words, they understood the regular balance of nature. But it says that in our process of breaking the female nigger, we have reversed nature by burning and pulling a civilized nigger apart and bull whipping the other ones to the point of death, all in her presence. By her being left alone, unprotected, with the male image destroyed, the ordeal caused her to move from her psychologically dependent state to a frozen independent state. In this frozen psychological state of independence, she will raise her male and female offspring in reversed roles. For fear of the young male's life, she will psychologically train him to be mentally weak and dependent, but physically strong. Because she has become psychologically independent, she will train her female offsprings to be psychologically independent. What have you got? You've got the nigger woman out front and the nigger man behind and scared. This is a perfect situation of sound sleep and economics. Before the breaking process, we had to be alertly on guard at all times. Now we can sleep soundly, for out of frozen fear, his woman stands guard for us. He cannot get past her early slave molding process. He is a good tool now, ready to be tied to the horse at a tender age. By the time a nigger boy reaches the age of 16, he is soundly broken in and ready for a long life of sound and efficient work and the reproduction of a unit of good labor force, continually through the breaking of uncivilized savage niggers by throwing the nigger female savage into a frozen psychological state of independence, by killing the protective male image, and by creating a submissive dependent mind of the nigger nigger male slave, we have created an orbiting cycle that turns on its own axis forever, unless a phenomenon occurs and reshifts the position of the male and female niggas. Need I say more? We gonna go in deeper and break this thing down, and get a much stronger understanding. But again, I've given enough meat to chew on to begin the process. We digging deeper, y'all. Willie Lynch, this is real. All of this stuff pertains to us now. I read so deep through there. I mean, when you begin to understand this was a plan, they understood what they were doing, that this thing was psychological, and that look what we are right there today. Exactly what they said. What did they say? They said the woman out front and the nigga man behind and scared. Now we'll say, oh, I ain't scared, blah, 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 blah. But right now in our community, women control everything. Homosexuality running rampant. All of these things are going on. We gonna continue to break down the Willie Lynch. I won't dig deep into my thoughts right now. We gonna continue to break this thing down and dig deeper. It's your boy Jay Free. I see because I'm not blind. I'm not blind because I can see. And good people, please pay attention, dig in deeper. I'm coming back with more. I love y'all, man. One love.